Nigeria said no to the United States, and Ghana said yes to the United States. One was received with open arms, the other was ignored. And now there are certain variables to these things. Would the favor backfire? Should they just say yes? Do Nigeria even need the favor of the United States? Will Ghana regret their action? Do these people actually have our interest at heart? Will this be a shackle in 2025 of freedom for this country? So let us talk about it. In June 2025, the US government under President Trump issued a proclamation that blocks or limits visa for citizens of certain countries. The stated reason was national security, public safety, concern about overstay, and inadequate cooperation in returning deportees. And that was when the US launched its Third-Country Deportation Policy after court clearance. So instead of sending people back to their home countries, the United States started sending some to other countries that agree to receive them. This is called the Third Country Deportation. And by early July 2025, news first broke that the US has started using South African countries like Eswatini, South Sudan, and Rwanda for this type of deportation. And by mid-July 2025, Ghana officially entered the picture. Ghana agreed to help, and planes began to land in Accra with West Africans who were not Ghanaian citizens. And around July 10 to 15, reports confirmed that Ghana had accepted 14 West African nationals, not Ghanaians, deported by the US. And at the same time, Ghana's president publicly said that his government agreed to accept West Africans sent by the US under the ECOWAS free movement rules. To him, the goal was clear, and that was to do whatever it takes to stay in America's good book. And one of the easiest ways is to accept people who are not even citizens, no matter their past, whether they have crimes or illegal immigrants. And of course, the United States will be very pleased. And by September, the deal became more visible after lawyers revealed that some of those 14 deportees had court protection in the US, but were still sent to Ghana. This actually sparked criticism, lawsuits, and judge courts warning the government that this might be a hand running for the US law. And soon after Ghana accepted the first group, about 14 people, the US lifted its visa restriction on Ghana. 5 years multiple entry visas were restored, including tourist and student visas. Ghana's leaders celebrated it as a progress, and in many ways it looked like one. But critics describe it as a trade-off that could easily backfire. The problem is that Ghana is not fully in control of who is being deported, because behind the headlines, lawyers and judges raised serious concerns. Some of the men sent to Ghana already had US court protections that said they should not be deported because of the danger they might face if they return to their home country. But once they are flown out, these protections are no longer valid, no longer applied to them because they were no longer on the US soil. A federal judge admitted she could not help them after that point because she openly questioned the process. And this is where our story begins. The United States deports people for two main reasons. The first is immigration violation. This happens when someone has no valid papers, when they have overstayed their visas, or when a judge has already issued a final removal order. Once that order becomes final, the person can legally be removed from the country. This is a standard part of the US immigration law, and every year the Department of Homeland Security keeps tracks of these numbers. The second reason is public safety. Many of the people who are removed from the United States have criminal records. Some may have committed minor offenses, but others are tied to more serious crimes. The US agencies often say that their priority is removing people they consider a threat, such as a gang member, human rights violators, or those with serious convictions. Some are undocumented, they broke into the US but have no violent record. Some have criminal convictions from lower level offenses to serious crimes. Some already served their sentence in the US. Some say they have legal protection from the US court. For example, they fear torture if returned. Some filed lawsuits after they were sent out. But sometimes there is always a problem. A person's own country may refuse to take them back. This could be because of political disputes, poor diplomatic relations, or simply delays. When that happens, the US law gives the government a tool, which is visa sanctions. This means that the US can restrict or punish a country by limiting visas until the government agrees to accept its citizens again. This authority comes from a section of the law known as the INA 243D, and over the years it has been used to push government into cooperation. Then came a new twist in 2025. The United States started removing some people that are not members of their country, the so-called third countries, nations that are willing to accept them. Even though they are not from citizens, Ghana, Eswatini, South Sudan, and Rwanda were among the countries named in reports and lawsuits. The US officials defended the practice, saying that some of these deportees had criminal convictions. But lawyers and human rights groups pushed back. Many of them had legal protections or pending claims in the US courts, yet were still flown out. And why now? The US government explained it as a part of a bigger effort to enforce immigration law more aggressively, and also to reduce backlogs of overstay and speed up removals, especially when a home country drags its feet. Critics, however, called it a dangerous shortcut. They argued that this approach dodges due process and breaks the international principle of non-refoulement, which says no one should be sent to a place where they may face persecution or danger, including Nigerians and others, and said more may come. Lawyers countered that at least 11 were then forwarded out of Ghana, some to Togo, despite safety concerns. A US judge noted she suspected the transfer to Ghana was designed to evade court protections, but she said she could not act once the men were outside US custody. These are confirmed facts in public records and reporting. They showed a mixed group with some crimes, some with paperwork problem, and some claiming danger if they returned. Ghana leaders gave two big reasons. First, under the ECOWAS rule, West Africans can enter Ghana without visas and move within the region, that they say make processing West African deportees more workable. In short, they arrive in Ghana and can be passed on to their home countries in the region. And secondly, after Ghana agreed to accept the deportees, the US lifted visa limits on Ghanaians, restoring longer multiple entries visas and other consular benefits. This was widely celebrated in Accra. Nigeria took a different path. Report says that Nigeria refused to accept non-Nigerian deportees and pushed them back against US pressure. The US did not restore Nigerians' visa term the way it did with Ghana. And in fact, Nigerian visas reportedly become more shorter and even more stricter in 2025. So Ghana chose access and diplomacy and got travel benefit. Nigeria chose limit, kept distance from the third country plan. People then ask, are these deportees criminals? But the honest answer is, some are, some aren't. US agency says they prioritize public safety cases. Lawyer says many are simply undocumented or have pending claims and fear. So both can be true at the same time. But here is the real danger: stigma. If a crime happens tomorrow in Accra and the suspect is from West Africa, all deportees and even innocent Nigerians who live in Ghana could be blamed for it. And that is how labeling works, to be very honest. Because right now, if something happens in Ghana, and this is as a result of the people that are being deported, Nigerians or people that are actually having their shelter in Ghana will be blamed for all of these atrocities. And that is how labeling works. It is unfair, but it actually happens, and it can turn neighbors against neighbors. There is also a capacity problem. People need food. These people need shelter and work that they can do every now and then. Some need legal aid. Some carry trauma from detention or prison. If the support is weak, small problem can become big crisis. This is what some of these lawyers are warning about. They describe the detention conditions and rush transfer after landing in Ghana. For ordinary Ghanaians and law-abiding Nigerians living in Ghana, this can mean fear, tension, and wrongful suspicion, even when they have nothing to do with any crime at all. And exactly what these lawyers are complaining about is what is happening currently. Because the first set of deportees that were transferred to Ghana, in which Nigerians are part of, they could have brought them down to Nigeria too, but they didn't bring them to Nigeria. They took them to Ghana. And some of these people are now complaining about the places that they were given to stay in. And while you will have expected that it's actually a cool thing that these people actually spoke out, they spoke out to the general public and made it known to the officials that they are not being treated well, that they are going through a lot. And instead of the government to actually find space for them, they now promise them, all of them, that they are going to take them to an hotel and they are going to be treated really fine. Not knowing that the Ghanaian government had another intention, and that was to transfer them from Ghana to Togo. And if you know Togo very well, you will know that they don't speak English in Togo. They speak French. So these people are now crying out again that the Ghanaian government have actually allowed them to go. Meaning that these people were not even passed through the normal border. They were not taken through the normal route, and instead of them meeting themselves in an hotel, they met themselves in another country called Mali. Might be wrong, but this is just my thought. Take a careful look at this picture. An invitation to the BRICS, big new oil, and loans deals with China, and even Mandarin now being taught in Nigerian classroom. I'm looking at this connection between Nigeria and China because to me, it doesn't just seem like a trade. It seems like a set of choices shaping Nigerians' future. And these choices might actually give Nigeria more power to say no when the United States comes with pressure. Because one of the things that we are now seeing is that the president of the United States is actually bringing pressure to do their biddings. So when they come with force, if you are not strong enough, and if you don't have the capacity to stand enough, you might be shaking and just fall for all of the things that he has for. So these choices are what you might not be entitled to actually determine if you actually want it for yourself. That's why we cannot actually blame Ghana entirely. All of this that is going on with Nigeria, China, Russia, and all of these people, these choices is giving Nigeria more power to say no when the United States come with pressure. Because when you have new friends, new markets, and new source of support, you are not forced to bend to the old ones. But these are just solely my thoughts. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. I'm not saying there's a secret plan, but think about it. When a country with oil, a country with over 200 million people, begin to open its schools to Chinese language and economy to Chinese capital, does it start leaning less on the West? Could this be why Nigeria refused to accept deportation deals that Ghana accepted? Could this be why Ghana said yes, why Nigeria stood back? This is just my thoughts. Let me know, because I'm just reading in between the lines. I might be wrong, but it's just one of those things, especially when it is all about pressure from the West every now and then. Every now they want to shape their choices for you to accept. You can't even say no when it's coming from the West. Let me know what you think. Do well to like, do well to comment, and share your comments below. So we'll see you in the next.